of this parliamentary session. As a government, we have an ambitious agenda to improve the lives of Canadians. And this means working hard in the House of Commons to advance legislation for the people we all represent. It means working with all parties in the House to get things done in a cooperative way, without partisan rancor or political games. Indeed, MPs from all parties in this minority parliament are here to represent their constituents, to get things done on behalf of the people they represent. Unfortunately, one party is preventing this from happening. The Conservatives, under the leadership of the member for Carleton, have behaved irresponsibly. They oppose for the sake of opposing, without proposing a responsible alternative. They obstruct the work of all members of this House, from all parties, all types of committees, solely for their own partisan interests. They prevent many bills from being voted on through filibustering and tactics. We all have seen that. And even for bills that they themselves support. They impose all-night voting marathons, and in the process, vote against the very investments Canadians count on.
That, Mr. Speaker, is the agenda of the Leader of the Official Opposition of the Conservative Party of Canada in this House. Delay, obstruct, and create chaos. And by doing so, hope that Canadians tune all of this out and don't become invested in the work that we do here, the work that impacts positively on Canadians every day. And I'll get to that in a moment. But before that, I want to talk about how they prevent the House of Commons from doing its work. Talk about never admitting to Canadians what he and his MPs are doing. And for all his claims about who he is working for, it's nothing but a ruse, Mr. Speaker.
That's for sure.
The Leader of the Official Opposition is working for himself, for no one else. And the House of Commons is paying the price. The motion we are debating today is designed to address the unfortunate place in which we now find ourselves because of the Conservatives' political agenda of chaos and obstruction. It is designed to allow the House to do its work. It is designed to provide extensive time to debate bills in this chamber, something that the Conservatives claim that they want, Mr. Speaker. It is designed to turn this place into a healthier workplace.
Right on.
No one, whether it is a member of Parliament or an employee working in the House of Commons, should be forced to work throughout the night simply because the Leader of the Opposition wants to bully others into participating in his political games. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, this motion reflects our government's view about what we should all want Parliament to be. A place for constructive debate, a place for testing ideas, a place for reasoned and civil discussions, a place, Mr. Speaker, where things get done.
Right on.
Simply put, Mr. Speaker, it should be a place that Canadians can be proud of, not look at and recoil in horror because of games playing through the night on the side of the official opposition. Unfortunately, the Conservative leader wants to prevent all this from happening, Mr. Speaker. He wants to turn this House into a place of dysfunction. On our side of the aisle, and I believe the same goes for other MPs in this chamber, we have a different view. We have a much greater respect for this place, for Parliament. We are here every day working hard to help Canadians in a wide range of areas that touch their lives.
I just interrupt the honourable member just for a moment. We might agree with what's being said today, but we all give respect to the person that's actually speaking. So let's just listen to the speaker. The honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I think that makes the point quite eloquently, doesn't it? That includes making life more affordable so that Canadians can pay for their groceries and their housing. It includes protecting our environment from the catastrophic consequences of climate change. and it includes ensuring Canadian families have access to quality, affordable childcare, something these Conservatives say they want, have voted for, but Mr. Speaker, refused to allow it to come to a vote so that this House can pass childcare for Canadian families from coast to coast to coast and start enjoying that now. It includes having access, Mr. Speaker, to sustainable jobs, to dental care, to having a strong armed forces, and a strong armed forces that are helping to protect the people of Ukraine by sending equipment, by sending supplies, by sending trainers so that the people of Ukraine can resist this illegal Russian invasion.
And unfortunately, the Conservatives are playing partisan games in the House to halt this progress for all Canadians. They refuse to cooperate with the other parties. They continually obstruct the passage of legislation. And this behaviour has been going on since the beginning of this Parliament. What have they blocked, Mr. Speaker? The budget, the fall economic statement, sustainable jobs for workers, childcare for Canadian families, free trade agreement with Ukraine, and a National Council for Reconciliation. Those are just 6 examples. This is stealthy parliamentary filibustering, and Canadians deserve better. The Conservatives' actions are not healthy for this Parliament or for democracy. We cannot allow members of all parties in this minority Parliament to be held hostage by the selfish political agenda of one party. We don't expect the Conservatives to change their tune. They will continue to play their parliamentary games to delay legislation. So we have an answer to this. The government has now introduced a motion to ensure that Canadians get the results they need from MPs. Our motion will allow for evening sittings to give more time to debate legislation. And my friends on the other side of the aisle say that they wish this, Mr. Speaker. And this motion is not unprecedented. This is the 3rd time we have found it necessary to propose a motion to extend the sitting hours of the House so that MPs can get on with their work. In the 2 previous cases, the House adopted motions to extend the hours for a specific period of time. And it's time to do it again. If adopted, the ability to extend sitting hours will remain in effect until the end of this parliamentary session. The Conservatives say they want more time to debate before voting. And that's what this motion would allow. Our motion, therefore, strengthens democracy. It will better ensure that one party, namely the Conservatives, don't block the work of all other parties in this House. Parliament works best when we work together, and not when one party stands in the way of progress. This motion provides for more time for members to debate in the evenings until midnight, Mr. Speaker. This is not a blanket extension for every day. It will not take place all the time, but only when necessary. The extension will only take place on a given day if the government has the support of another party for it to take place on that day. This support would represent, therefore, a majority of the members of this House.
Mr. Speaker, this motion clearly indicates that the government cannot surprise the House one day by stating that it will sit late that night. The government has no intention of using this motion at a moment's notice to extend the sitting hours. Indeed, the motion we are debating today clearly states that advance notice for a late sitting is to be given the day prior. Mr. Speaker, the motion also provides for early adjournment of the House. Before we start hearing the Conservatives claim we're trying to shut down the House in the days or weeks ahead, let's put the facts on the table. Such an assertion from the Conservatives would be patently false. The motion says that in the last 2 sitting days of a fall sitting, the government could put forward a motion to adjourn the House early for the Christmas break. Similarly, it says in the last 3 days of a spring sitting, the government could put forward a motion to adjourn the House early for the summer break. In both instances, if this is to happen, adjourning early is not something the government could do on its own. It is a votable motion. The House would vote on whether to adjourn. And it would only pass if a majority of MPs decided that the business of that fall or spring sitting is substantively complete. So let's put aside any ludicrous claims from the Conservatives about adjourning early. We have too much work to do, Mr. Speaker. If they make that claim, it's because they don't want to talk about the overarching intent of the motion, to extend the daily hours of the House so that MPs can debate bills so they come to a vote. We want more time, not less, for MPs to do their work in the House. If Conservatives have a problem with this, then they need to explain why, Mr. Speaker. And finally, I would like to address another significant part of this motion. Last December, and we all remember this, Mr. Speaker, in the final days of the spring sitting, the Conservatives tried to turn the House of Commons into a sad spectacle to fulfill their leader's basic impulses as a political bully. The House was scheduled to vote on the budgetary estimates. This is a routine part of the parliamentary cycle and should have been dealt with just a handful of votes. Instead, the Conservatives decided to vote against investments our government is making. They forced more than 130 consecutive votes through the night so that they can vote against funds in a wide variety of areas. And I would note for my friends that all of those are recorded, Mr. Speaker, for posterity, so we know exactly who voted against what in this House. Let me give you some examples. The construction of new homes, cracking down on terrorism financing, supporting communities recovering from Hurricane Fiona, something you know well, Mr. Speaker, cracking down on firearms from illegally entering Canada, ending gender-based violence, supporting Canada's dairy, poultry, and egg farmers, supporting, Mr. Speaker, the Montreal Holocaust Museum, training Ukrainian soldiers through Operation Unifier, and supporting our border guards to keep the Canadian border secure. Conservatives stayed up all night, at least some of them did,
very few,
to vote against all of these things, Mr. Speaker. But who did not stay up all night? The very person that said he was going to keep us here till Christmas, to block all progress for Canadians, to block all measures for Canadians, to block supports, vital supports, across the board.
Point of order from the Honourable Member for Timmins James Bay. Always helpful.
Know that you're not supposed to stay when someone's not in the House, and it should be fair. The leader of the Conservative Party did show up in time to vote against Ukraine, and then he went home.
I will suggest to everyone as we dance on that line that we're not supposed to say whether someone's here or not in the future, in the past, even though right now. The Honourable Government House Leader.
I would, point well taken from the member and from you, Mr. Speaker, but I would point out that votes indeed are recorded. So we'll be paying close attention to that, as we always have, Mr. Speaker. So what we went through was standing up for the kinds of things the Canadians expect this Parliament to do, standing up for the kinds of things they expect their government to do, and standing up, yes, Mr. Speaker, for the very essence of the democracy that happens in this chamber. We were determined to stay here all night to demonstrate to Canadians that we are standing on guard for the things they cherish. We are standing on guard for the programs that they depend on government for, and we are standing on guard for those things, despite the trickery and the maliciousness demonstrated by the official opposition.
Give us too much credit.
They joke, Mr. Speaker. They joke about these things.